5.7 valves. 5.7.1 scope. The section provides general background information on the various types of valves found in the petroleum system. Provides description of common organizational level maintenance and troubleshooting associated with the valves. Additional information pertinent to valves and associated equipment can be found in the following references: Mill V 12,003 valve plug and cast iron steel. Mill V 23611 valve ball. Mill V 18,434 valves gate globe angle. Military Handbook 1022 Petroleum Fuel Facility. Military Handbook 201B Petroleum Operations. 572 General Maintenance Requirements. Valves that have been in consistent services over long periods of time eventually require gland tightening and repacking, completely overhaul the part, or as a complete overhaul of a part. This is detected that a valve is not controlling the fuel flow is intended. The valve should be dismantled. All parts shall be inspected. All defective parts must be repaired and replaced at the time the valve is dismantled. Packing the gasket seals and should be replaced. And Figure 571 provides a checklist of the items recommended to the maintaining the valve. Here is a valve. It's a valve maintenance checkoff diagram. You see, I'm gonna back out of this to 75%, and you'll see the picture of the valve. The stem of the threads. Remove the burrs and the paint. Clean the rags. Corrosive cloth. Do not paint. Strong packing strong back and packing retainer to clean with the wire brush to use as a light silicone spray lubricated. 3 gland cleaning with the rags and Croscus cloth. Do not paint internal. 4 volume bonnet. Clean with the wire brush paint and clean with the valve point. Clean with the wire brush paint. Valve body same as the item 4. Valve disc. Inspect the cuts and cracks. Report and abnormalities. The supervision of the component is virtually for the same proper operation. The system blue and the disc checking for the proper seating surface. 7. The valve seat inspection of the cutters cracks and reporting abnormalities to supervise. This component is vital for the safe proper operation or system. 8. Valid ID tag. Ensure that the tag is readable, replacing with reassembling. 9. Valve hand wheel is clean with wire brush. Do not use paint. Stem bushings. It says S&A items yoke and SA item 4. Gland stud. Ensure that at least one, but no more than 4 of the threads are visible. Clean with the wire brush. Do not paint. A gland stud nut. Cleaning with the wire brush. Ensure that the nut runs freely, studded, and preserves the light silicone lubricant. 14. Body bonnet stud of the SAT and IT-12. The body bonnet stud nut is SA and item 4. Gland stuffing box and use of correct style, size, and ensuring packing edges. The cut that this style refers to the surface of the valve is a temperature of liquid. Note that all threads of the silicone lubricant should be applied to the preventing seizing and retarding rust and corrosion. And that is valve maintenance for a checkoff diagram. You see the 572.1, and we'll go on. Common valve problems. The several valve maintenance problems can come into this many valves, regardless of the type, size, and design. They are outlined below. When valve will not complete its full stroke or exhibit excess leakage of closed dirt or foreign matter may be trapped between the valve seat and the seating surface of the valve disc. If it may also mean the seats are eroded and damaged. If the problem is due to the damaged parts, the replace of these parts are in accordance with the specific technical manual. The problem is due to the dirt and an eroded seat. Cleaning with the valve is directed in the valve technical manual, and lap of the seat and disc is described in section 5724 of this manual. If the valve is leaking at a joint in connection to the joint, it may simply be loose. The tightening of the flange bolt of the connection does not stop the leakage. Clean the flange and surface of the valve piping to remove dirt from the foreign matter that may be trapped on the joint faces. Install a new gasket tightening connection. If the leakage observed in the stem packing area, tighten the gland nuts, and leakage is still observed over the gland nuts cannot be tightened further without binding and valve stems. Repack the valve and describe in section 5723. In 572.2, spotting and blue checking valves. 5722. Spotting or blue checking valves. The method used to visually determine whether the seats or disc of the valve may good contact with each other is called spotting and blue checking. The thin coating of the Prussian blue is eventually applied to the entire machine surface of the disc, and the disc is inserted into the valve and rotated 1 1/4, turning the light downward pressure for the gates of the inserting gates, and the pressure firmly into the seat. The Prussian blue will adhere to the valve seat at the lowest points where the disc makes contact. The correct blue check will leave an unbroken, uniform circle of the valve seat. The circle should be lower than portion of the valve seat and should not be excessively wide or high on the seat. On the gates of the valve, the blue circle should also be unbroken and uniform thickness. After the condition of the valve seat has been checked, the disc should be cleaned. A thin, even coat of the Prussian blue should be applied to the seat, the disc into the gate, and is pressed into the valve as described above. When you remove the blue ring, the disc should be again unbroken and uniform, and on the gate valves, the ring should be offset to the low side of the gate seating surface, but should be raised to the concentric position of the valve gate of the seat wear. If the blue ring is broken in any way, the disc and seating are not making the proper contact. Action should be taken into correct fit. Should be lapping on the valve seating disc is described in section 5724. Replacing the seat and the disc 5723. Repacking the valves. If the stem packing the valve in the good condition, stop packing the gland leakage. Tightening the package. Be careful, however, to avoid the excessive threaded engagement of the packing of the gland studs and tighten old harding packings which could cause the valve to seize. Subsequent operation to such a valve may score to the bend of the stem. Valve repacking involves removing the old packing, inspecting the cleaning of the valve stand and gland, and installing a new packing. Adding the new packing is not difficult, but should be done according to the applicable valve technical and reference listed under section 571 of this manual. 5724, lapping of the valve seats. If the bluing occurs at the inspection of the valve, shall be small irregularities in valve seats. The valve seat and disc may be lapped and remove these irregularities. The lap involves applying to the small amount of the grinding lapping compound to the face of the disc, or the lapping tool grinding this against the seat to smooth out the irregularities. Lapping is usually done to the globe and gate, and in some check valves. However, the seat of a large globe and the gates valves are replaceable, and as our seats are all ball and butterfly valves. 5725 flow mark. Ensure the valves are aligned with properly fluid flow direction. Some valves are global and stop check and checklist and marked with flow marks on the body of the valve. Consult the system diagram in the valve technical manual prior to the installation of these types of valves. In their system, installing a check valve against the flow of direction usually results in completion obstruction of the following. 573 motor operations. Motor operators are used to remote position various types of valves: gate, ball, butterfly, plug valves, and on-off service of often operated electrical drive-in operators, which may be considered as an integral part of the valve maintenance. Air and hydraulic powered operators are available, but are rarely found in petroleum terminals. 5731 description of the electrical operators petroleum system are driven by small electrical motors, whether rather than complex agreements of gears, using limits of switches and controls, and immediately human action of the rotating hand wheel and handle can be generally checked into the possession of valve faster. The controls of limit switches are necessary to prevent damage to the system due to the hydraulic shock and damage to the valve through the mechanical impact. 5732, the maintenance routine. Preventive maintenance should be including the cycling infrequently operated valves, monthly lubrication of the valve operator, and adjusting the valve packing. The applicable equipment technical manual should be consulted with the maintenance is performed. Many valve operators are exposed to whether the required preservation moisture proof seals of stems capable or cable penetration. They should be inspected regular limit switches are especially susceptible to damage from the environment. The stuck of the rusted switch can be rendered otherwise operable valve distribution. If the valve motor does not start, the following the requirements of the valve technical manual: normal maintenance recommendations, including inspection of the connections, controllers, terminal boxes, fuses, circuit breakers, terminals as source of the power voltage, motor terminals, and motor installation resistant of the ground, resistant between phases, obtaining the assistance of the qualified electrician if necessary to correct the deficiencies. If the motor overheats its overload, it'd be operating at an improper terminal voltage or have short circuit. And see the section 513.5 to the detailed information of the motor failures or condition malfunctions with the motor operated valves and including mechanical problems, is limited valve travel despite of the operable motor and excessive noise or vibration during the operation. The malfunctions indicate a failure to the drive system or a sheared pin or key, which may have been caused by stuck valves. All driven, including gears, clutches, and valve stems, should be inspected and replaced, and if necessary. 574 Gates valve. Gate valves are primarily used to start and stop fluid flow. These valves should be either fully open or completely closed, and they should not be used in the throttle full flow and the fully open where the fluid flows through the valve in a straight line with very little resistance to the turbulence. 574, the description of the gate valves are so named that because the wedge-shaped part of the stop flows from the valve acts and somewhat likes opening and closing and sliding gate. When the valve is wide open, the gate is slowly retracted in the valve body, leaving the open for opening for the flow air through the valve, same size of the piping in which the valve installed. Figure 572 shows the internal parts of the typical rising of the stem gate valve. 5742, maintenance of the gate valve. Maintenance can be in either preventive, corrective, or it can be in a range of periodic inspection of the completely overhaul of the valve and the repair. And you see here what we see is a 572, the cut gate valve cutaway. You have your they're collecting here from the prevention valve of the closing the body and split wedge receptacle seating. Some valves in a bolted bonnet. This is bolted on there. And the packaging, the gland, the yoke, and the stem, and the hand wheel. If you don't get these, there is a Navy flat course that sells 6 college credit courses for the valve. You get the gates and the valves other than routine renewal. Packing is generally limited to refinishing the valve, seating and disc surfaces, and procedure in the bolt from packing and late. And also, you might want to check out Navy Mate, and that's PDFs. Gates, valves, and other routine renewal packaging is generally limited to refinishing valve seating and discs and surfaces. Procedure for repacking, lapping, and covered in Section 572. However, the gate valves of the seats and gates cannot be open or cannot be lapped against each other. Lapping the seats requires special tools of the lapping disc and inserted into the valve, rotated against one seat at a time. The gate is lapped and placing the lapping bolt into the lapping compound, moving the disc into the figure 8 pattern where this motion prevents removal of the tool material from one area of the gate and being lapped and cutting of the groove into the gate. 575. The global valves. The global valves are extensively employed with the throttling fluid flow. Positive shutoff and is required. They are not normally used for their on-service and on-off service because of the large pressure drop of the valve. Global valves are used in isolating, should not be throttled since the eroded seating surfaces causes leakage. Likewise, the throttle valves should not be used in positive shutoff since they may be leakage while still requiring adequate support. Global valves are able to absorb in higher structural loadings of the gates. 5751, description: the seats of the global valve in parallel direction of the flow that is brought down and directly on the seat of the seating force is provided through the valve stem, and some global founds back seating feature that they repacked under flow line pressure of the fully open figure set 573 of the cross section and typical globe valve. 5752, the maintenance all applicable general maintenance requirements, safety concerns is directed in the valve technical manual in section 5.1. In the 576, the valves properly designed constructed ball valves are relatively simple and dependable on and off petroleum surface. Ball valves are generally not used in throttling. The valve can be fully closed in the quarter turn of the handle and does not require lubrication. The ball valves and extensive use of synthetic materials like Teflon and seats and seals. In 576.1, the description and the ball valves are use of rotating elements of the hole from the center of the hole of the aligned within the bore of the pipe is allowed. When it's turned 90 degrees, the bore of the pipe and the flow is stopped, and most design liquid pressure tends to force of the ball against the pliable seating material. Form a seal. The hole of the ball is usually same diameter as the pipe, offers virtually no resistance to the flow. 574 shows the typical ball valve. 576, maintenance of the simple design of the ball valve requires little maintenance, and all maintenance on the ball valve should be accomplished with the valve completely. You have your hand wheel, you have your hand wheel nut, the stem, the packing of the nut, and the packing, the bonnet, the disc nut upper, and the disc holder, the disc, the body, and a disc nut lower. 5.7, that's a global valve cutaway view. You have your packaging, your stem, your gland, stem, packaging, gland, spacer, rotating ball, seat, port opening. Flange replaceable spacer seal. Isolated, since the design valve does not isolate the packing and the stem seals from the fluid. Pressure maintenance should be performed on the valve since the leakage past the closed valve is observed, increasing the downstream pressure of the flow from the tail of talc drains and general valve and affect difficult to operate. Maintenance generally consists of the renewal packaging of the valve sandwich seals, renewal of the seat balls, and is required regardless of the maintenance required for the following applicable general maintenance requirements. Safety app concerning the directed valve technical manual, section 5.1 of this manual is more any applicable reference to the 571. 577 motor butterfly valve. The valve is a variation of the butterfly valve. The butterfly valve is a variation of the ball valve. The use of a flapper disc instead of the ball in butterfly valves are used on and off of flow control surfaces as well as throttling. The general should not be used where the complete storage or complete stoppage of flow installation is required. Butterfly valves are less expensive other than valves initially installed. The life cycle costs coupled with the need of the backup valves and ensure the positive isolation limited to their usefulness in the petroleum applications. The 5771 description of the butterfly valves are similar in design and ball and plug valves rarely mainly in this design shown in the 575. The benefits of these valves are they are light in weight and relatively small, quickly acting, can be used in throttling. The seat of the butterfly valves are usually made in the resilient material of the seals of stems, although packing is usually added to provide positive seal. 5772. The maintenance, since the design and the construction of butterfly valves are relatively simple for the maintenance requirements are also simple. And most often, valve can be returned to the service, replacing the seat since the resilient seat of the is held in the place mechanical mains, and neither in bonding or in cement is necessary because the seating of this receptacle valve does not require lapping grinding of the machine work. Prior to replacing the seat, inspecting the circumference of the rotating disc to ensure the imperfections does not score the new seat. Carefully file the grind. Any rough edges do not move the curvature of the disc edge. Follow the applicable general maintenance requirements. Safety concerns directed in section 5.1 of the manual valve technical manual. Applicable references see section 571. Here you see a lever-handed seating edge of the body and seat of the O-ring and the rotating disc. This is a butterfly valve. 578 lubricated plug valves. Completing understanding the operation principle lubricated plug valves is important because the thousand of them are used in naval fuel system because they require constant maintenance attention. The lubricated plug valves are heavy specialized grease under the high pressure instead of the flexible seat to perform the seal between the plug and the body is properly mentioned in the valves. Given dependable, tight, and sealed, however, they will leak if they are greased and reservoirs become empty and loosen pressure. Lubricated plug valves are not authorized. The new construction should be replaced in any other type of within no longer serviceable. 5781 description of lubricated plug valve is similar to the design to a ball valve. However, the rotating element is conical plug of the porthole through it, and the valve can be opened and closed by a quarter turn of the handle. However, it differs from the the ball valve through the inclusion of the lubricant fitting packaging gland that forces the lubricant through the plug body. The lubricant flows through the sides of the body of the plug and to the form of the seal and prevented from the escaping around the type. And by the O-ring, figure 576 illustrates the cutaway section of the typical lubricated plug. The specialized grease services two other than functions directed in metal-to-metal contact within the prevention of the rotation of the plug without excessive effort. The grease forces out of the bottom provides the lift necessary to brake direct metal contact surrounding the plug ensures the seal's additional grease acts as a lubrication rotating the plug. 5782 the maintenance lubrication of the plug valves. Primarily the maintenance required is completed with the schedule. Little less should be necessary. Ordinary petroleum-based grease is not used for plug valves as it is soluble for fluids and would contaminate them. Be sure that the grease applied for the valve matches the valve vendor's specification and capability for the use within all petroleum products except past the valve. The grease is available from two forms: semi-solid sticks and manually inserted bulk, which is packaged in tubes or cans forced into with a grease gun. And the sticks are long-lasting but require more type of carry to apply for the valve. An acceptable either type of preference should be based on the consideration of each activity. The larger number of valves lubricated by the hand grease and guns per hour surfaces carts of the vehicle of the bulk grease stick packaging may be more advantageous for the remote sites of the smaller number of plug valves. Here is a Lubricated plug valve cutaway. It has a packaging gland packaging O-ring, cover stud, cover, tapered plug, body, lubricating wheel, port, lubricant groove, and lubricating fitting screw and screw lubricator with a lubricating groove. Lubricated plug valve cutaway view 576 figure. The force needed to rotate the valve is key in determining the state of the valve. The force may be excessive for the packaging. Grease supply is low and plugged in the body of the ground, and the valve seat is corrected in adjusting the packaging gland bolt of the screw until the additional lubricating lifts unseated. The plug audible click in the popping cord assisting over the adjustment. An excessive lift and will allow the lubricant into the wash away. Breaking the seal experiences indicates the lubricated plug valves are regularly used and should be maintained weekly. Whether there is a grease reserve of the screw type lubricator and lubricator should be tightened and to insert. The more grease increase in the pressure and more grease is added, only in the reserve becomes empty. If irregular use of valves, and it should be lubricating quarterly before each of the use, and whenever comes first a valve will be not turned and it probably needs a lubrication. Do not force it and will probably operation valve requires about 50 pounds of the force rotated. Stick lubricants are usually applied to the screw type of the lubricated. The steps followed when applying to the type of lubrication. Remove the lubrication, insert a new stick of the lubrication lubricator. Replace the lubricator, tighten the lubricator until all the lubricant goes into the valve and there is sufficient pressure. If all lubricant is forced into the valve, keep the heating pressure until the sufficient low pressure to the large diameter valve has been not recently lubricated and may be taken and done in more sticks. If possible, operate in the valve during lubrication, distribute and lubricating. Always leave the screw lubricator and fully extended the full lubricant. Lubricated plugs that don't maintain and tight seals properly, they have been scored or dirty, glowed, and worn, and otherwise damaged. If the damage is slightly, it can be corrected in lapping in the plug into the seat, and this should be down and described in section 5724. The valve operators, such as war gear operators, has grease and fittings lubricated in schedule using the handgun and conventional lithium-based grease. The non-lubricated plug valves, non-lubricated plug valves are similar to lubricated plug valves, except for that they achieve the closer force of resistant seal against the seal through a variety of mechanisms. Among the several makes of valves, these new lubricant sums are among the most dependable maintenance-free valves. In 5791 description, non-lubricated plug valves are similar to design lubricated plug valves. They do not have the parts or required lubrication. They have receptacles to resilient plug valves are quickly acting relatively small. They are not designed to throttling flow. 5792, the maintenance. Since the non-lubricated plug valves will require no lubrication, they are virtually maintenance and free, and the existing leakage that seats which should be replaced in accordance with the applicable general maintenance requirements, safety concern, and detailed in section 571. Alright, I'm going to reread that. If the valve exhibits leakages, it should be replaced in accordance with the applicable general maintenance requirements, safety concerns detailed in section 5.1 of the maintenance of this manual. The valve technical manual may be applicable reference in 5.7.1. 5.7.10, the check valves are designed to prevent and backflow at all way, allow fluid transfer in one direction in the piping system. Check valves should be conformed in the API standard 60 and in 5.7.10. The description swing for check valves is usually disc and attached to the valve body. It is pin hinge and is gravity during the no flow condition. The differential pressure caused by the flow allows to the valve opening, and a swing check valve is shown in the figure 5.7.7. And the lift check valve uses a disc setting similar from the global valve. However, the no stem attached from the valve is open from the pressure that overcomes the pressure to the top of the disc, pushes the valve, and pressure on the top of the disc supplemented by the spring and other means of the 5.7.10.2. The maintenance of the check valves require very little maintenance. However, they require lapping and seating the disc replacement at the back. If leak occurs, since swing and check valve and the seats and lap following the same procedures used to the gate valve, lifting check valves and lapped in the same manner as global valves. Irregular flow the check valves and can be used in the valve disc and the chatter of the hammer against the valve seat. This often causes the premature excessive wear of the valve seat, and the condition occurs that the pipe upstream should be cap, hinge pin, seating ring, disc, body with a direction of flow. This is a swing check valve and a section valve. Obviously, you see this direction of flow going into the seating ring through the disc and then opening a hinge part of the going through the body and the cap. Check for blockage and debris. Always equipment supplying regulating on the pressure of following make maintenance proper position of the valve reference to the horizontal is very important to ensure the proper check of the valve operation. Since the downward force of the gravity is necessary for proper operation, the check valve installed upside down and down or any angle away from horizontal may function as intended, ensuring market in the valve body understood and followed during the valve installation. 5711 flow control valves. The flow control valves are used to control and regulate petroleum product flow by use of differential pressure of the diaphragm to open and close the valve. Diaphragm operated valves usually in numerous applications, various combinations of pilot arrangements that may be operated to as remote operated shut-off pressure reducing pressure relief, pack pressure, excessive flow, automatic two-stage shut-off valves as though they are those of truck loading. One valve design can do all the things that are minor installation differences. Nearly every aircraft with a fuel system filter separator combined with water slug shut-off, the flow rate control valve, automatic water drain valve, and these diaphragms operated valve. 5711 and 1. Description of the valve is operated difference in pressure is main valve and the beneath diaphragm, and pressure is covered in chamber above the diaphragm. And see figure 578, and the pressure avoided by the diaphragm supplemented in the spring so that the fluid pressure is above and below the diaphragm equals the spring will close, and above with the close the valve and the pressure above the diaphragm is reduced and opening the cover of the chamber at the atmosphere. The great pressure will cause the valve to open. The pressure of the diaphragm between the upstream downstream sides of the diaphragm is caused by the pressure drop of the flow from the flow through the valve. The pressure drop has the high enough of the 2.5 pounds to overcome the force of the spring to allow full of the opening of the valve. In case the filter separators and floated operated pilot valve is arranged and so that the introduces high pressure to cover the chamber close of the valve, and then there is too in much water is something similar, and when the rate of the flow of the pilot in the senses to the much pressure drop will excessive flow and lets enough pressure that it lets partially close and called modulating valve, and until the flow rate is reducing acceptable level and electrically control the solenoid pilot valves and can be also used in control operating closing of the main valve and the remote point through the relatively simple wiring. The pilot tube connection opening higher pressure, the position indicators, the spring, your cover chamber, your diaphragm, your seating sill. Here's your pilot tube connection open to the lower pressure. This one's a higher. As you see, as the inlet comes in, it fills up through the flow control valve, which has a main valve stem, and it goes. And when the valve is closed, it shuts off. The seatable inside the cover chambers, and then when its valve opens, it goes through the valve. This is the diaphragm of the flow control valve of the cross section. Other pilot systems accessory from may be included is accelerator control valves in the control of speed operation, manual pilot controls to permit the manual control of the main valve, the pilot strainers to protect the pilot system from the dirt. 5711-2, the maintenance of the diaphragm operated control valves generally depending on trouble-free. The principal source is trouble and is diverted of the frozen moisture. The small pilot tubing valves and strainers liquid supplied to the pilot system is recommended. While the pilot strainers are first installed, it should be inspected and cleaned once a week, and the frequency inspection is reduced. The observation strainer contamination indicates the valve should be observed during operation to determine whether they respond to system and conditions. Is intended position indicator of the top valve, and helpful is the valve does not work and properly remove the clean of the pilots and pilot tubing. If the valve is installed, the direction of the flow from the pilot steam system is clean. With the valve will not open, the diaphragm may be ruptured. The following is reversed and failure to closure, indicating the ruptured diaphragm. Replacement of the diaphragm is relatively simple. Flow of the manufacturer instruction, particular make of the valves, and complete with a test of the shop environmental possible. And since the proper operation requires overcoming spring of the forces and opening the valve cycle rapidly does not obtain an expected flow of the pressure may be defectively in spring pressure relief valves. The rough relief valves, automatically valves, are used in system lines equipment to prevent the inadvertent overpressurization. Most relief simple lift open the fluid vapor pressure light increases above the preset valve and reset shut off when the pressure drops and down to below the lift pressure. In petroleum fuel facility pressure relief valves are usually preventing overpressure in critical systems such as the aircraft fuel system. They are used in preventing damage damage to those pumps, particularly positive displacement pumps, and working against the closed discharge. They are used to avoid system leakage damages caused by thermal erosion. Expansion figure 579 shows the cross-sectional typical pressure relief valve, which might be used for these purposes in cases of pressure relief bypasses may be built in positive displacement pumps. 5712.1 description of the construction of operation. Pressure relief is similar to those of the global valve. It is normally closed state, and the opening of the pressure of the disc must be exceeded the opposing force of the pre-calibrated spring. Here's a cap, the stem, the lock nut, the spring adjusting screw, a bonnet, a spring washer, a spring, the sleeve, a spring washer, the body. Here's a disc and a drain and a nozzle. Pressure relief valve cross-sectional view. Surround the valve stem calibrated spring associated with adjusting mechanism. Replace the hand wheel and yoke commonly found in an ordinary globe valve. 5712.2 maintenance should be limited to manual lifting, and if required to the component technical manual. Adjusting the seat relief measure, and if necessary for all search for the valve relief, the pressure can be adjusted within the pressure range of the springs, turning the adjusting screw on the top. The use of the pressure gauge determined the set of the view opening pressure. Adjusting the pressure is necessary after adjusting the set of the lock nut, replacing the cap and seal, and tagging the valve and indicating the adjustment, setting the pressure and date and as it was set, and the pressure is above and below the acceptable range of the relief valve, and replacing the spring. Testing and relief of the valve opening. Initial installation. The system should be done with extreme care and caution, since the involves in raising the pressure in the system above normal and operating pressure of the relief valve fails during a test. The system could be easily overpressured. Alternative, the valve may be taken to the test bench is set, and it may be preferable risking overpressurization of the system. The maintenance is being performed on a relief valve, and the system is installed should be having another means of overpressure to the protection, or should be vented in the atmosphere. Prevention pressure should build up. The pressure relief valves are for SEMP and pressure protection technical manual procedures. Maintenance requirements must be followed in verbatim. Additional follow applicable general maintenance required is directed in 5.1 of this manual. Any applicable references in section 5.7.1. 5.8 swivel joints, loading arms, and pantographs.